And I say that is the procedure because I use the system, I call it in capital letters, the system of white supremacy. And I say it's a world government. It governs all of the non-white people on the planet. That's the premise. Now, many people will say, oh, that's not true. All right, well, I have said that it is true. So what I'm saying is either true or false. That when it comes to people of color, there is a system of government, world government, and I say it's the only government that really counts. All other governments, so-called governments, are just that, so-called governments. There's no such thing as America in the system of white supremacy. There's no such thing as Africa in the system of white supremacy. And there's no such thing as Asia in the system of white supremacy. Now, usually people think of those three A's as something that really exists. America, Africa, Asia. So let's look at the definitions. See, that's what I mean by the use of words. And that's why I recommend that people read the textbook for victims of racism. Then they can understand how I'm using words. Because when I say America is a concept, just like counter-racism is a concept. I haven't countered racism. I'm not a counter-racist. Why? Because I haven't conquered racism. That's a concept. That's an idea. America is an idea. It's never been realized. It's never been produced. America is something you have to produce. That's not just a slogan. I mean, it's just kind of floating around out there. It's a way that people live. It's what people are. There's no such thing as an American. Why? What is the definition of an American? According to what? According to what? The definition of American is the same as the definition of African and the definition of Asian. So what is the definition of those three A's? The blanket definition: American, African, Asian. It has one definition, and that is, first of all, it's not a place. Neither one of those are a place. They are people. Americans are people, Africans are people, and Asians are people. What kind of people? They are people who practice justice. Otherwise, why have a title at all? You can call anything anything if you're not doing justice. The word American means a person that practices justice. The word African, according to compensatory logic, see, I'm speaking according to the new definitions, you might say. An African is a person that practices justice. And an Asian is what? A person that practices justice. American, African, Asian. They're all people who practice justice. But since nobody practices justice in a system of white supremacy because they can't, it's impossible to practice justice in a system of white supremacy, then nobody qualifies for the title of American, African, or Asian. According to what, Fuller? I mean, are you making sense? According to what? According to logic, that's what. I mean, if you don't practice justice, you're going to call yourself an American? Then what's the value of being an American if you don't practice justice? It has no value. You as a person, if you're not about justice, you're not supposed to have any value, which means you can't qualify for being an American, and you can't qualify for being an African, and you can't qualify for being an Asian, because these three people, just the titles all mean the same thing. People who practice justice. It's impossible for anybody to practice justice in the system of white supremacy. So you have no one on this planet who qualifies for the title of American, African, or Asian. And this is spoken about, this is described in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. That's what I mean by the use of language.
Yes.
You use language so that you purify everything that you say. And nobody can contest what you're saying. Why? Because it's based on logic. Based on logic. Everything that you say should be based on logic. You just don't throw words out there and say that they mean something or another. Because if you do that, you got what? Confusion.